We take a closer look at the country's first sovereign wealth fund as it makes a high-stakes move, acquiring a 20% stake in Synergy Grid and Development Philippines, Inc., giving it indirect control over the operator of the nation's power transmission network. This deal, which secures 2 board seats in the grid operator, is being positioned as a step toward greater national security and energy stability. But why start here? Is this a purely financial move or a national security strategy? Joining us via Zoom to break it all down is Joel Consing, the president and CEO of the Maharlika Investment Corporation. Good morning, Joel. Thanks for being here with us.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me.
Okay, Joel, for your maiden investment, the Maharlika Investment Fund acquired a stake in the NGCP. Why was this the right first move for you?
Well, we've always identified energy security as our first investment. We felt that just given the studies that have been done by the DOE, it's extremely important for us to be able to propel growth or to support growth by way of providing and ensuring electricity supply in the Philippines. And we felt that having identified energy security and the electricity sector as our priority, we then went to that part of the sector which requires the most amount of investment, and that would be the grid.
And when you choose investments, I know profitability and social impact matter to you. Apart from that, was this move driven by financial returns or national security, or a bit of both?
It would be primarily financial returns, and at the same time also social impact. Basically, we've got a twin mandate in MIC, i.e., optimizing returns and also achieving impact for our investments. And we felt that supporting NGCP's rollout would achieve both objectives.
As the government already regulates the NGCP, why was an equity stake necessary?
Well, since 2009, since it's been privatized, the role of government had been, you're absolutely right, it's purely from the perspective of regulatory alone, or regulatory oversight alone. And then we felt basically that having the ability to participate as a board member, being able to gain access to insights on how the rollouts are being planned and how they're being executed, we felt would be very useful actually insofar as the Philippine government is concerned, and also quite profitable for Maharlika.
That's right, you guys get 2 board seats. On another note, China's State Grid Corporation still owns 40% of NGCP. Does Maharlika's investment reduce security risks, or does it just give us a seat at the table here?
Yeah, from our perspective, really, it gives us visibility and transparency. And I think if you look at the plans of NGCP, they have been able to roll out quite a significant amount of grid capacity. In fact, if you look at the numbers, there is in fact greater grid capacity than generation capacity, except that I think there is a misalignment in terms of where that availability is compared to where the GenCos are currently building. And hopefully we can align that, and we can help facilitate that the alignment between both sectors in order to ensure that we are in fact building plants where they can immediately provide electricity to the grid.
And how much influence does this give the government?
Well, from zero influence, sitting no one sits at the board at the moment, and we will have 2 board seats, so that's basically 2 voices out of 15. Whilst the aim was never really to take over, neither were we aiming to have control basically over the transmission asset. So it's really, again, being able to obtain some voice and some level of influence in terms of how the rollout is being managed, and just to ensure that just to make sure that we are in fact aligned basically with the national interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of national interest, is there a long-term strategy to reduce foreign ownership in NGCP?
Intuitively not. In fact, I personally think that it should remain in private sector hands. It was privatized in very transparent manner in 2008 rather, awarded in 2009. And I think it should remain in private hands simply because of the amount of investment and capex that needs to be undertaken. There's been a lot of talk, particularly during the committee hearings, as to the amount of revenues that they've generated. But I think we have to remember that close to about 365 billion pesos of investment that already been undertaken by NGCP, insofar as the grid rollout is concerned. And I think we should give them credit for that.
Well, congratulations on this, your first investment. But beyond the NGCP, what's next for Maharlika?
Well, we've identified quite a few sectors, and last Saturday we also announced our very first. We announced our MOU with the CP Group of Thailand, wherein we are aiming to establish an agricultural fund that would be investing in the agro-industry sector and also the power generation sector, renewable power generation sector in the Philippines. Extremely excited about that. We will be acting as co-GPs, and CP Group will be acting as GP for the fund.
We're very excited for you. Now, looking ahead, what specific impact do you see the Maharlika Fund having on the Philippine economy over the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. If you look at the makeup of economy today, roughly about 70% of the GDP is driven by household consumption. Call it maybe about 21% coming from capital formation, and roughly about maybe another 20%, 20 to 24% government spending, and the rest are trade deficit, and that makes up the whole GDP. And meanwhile, you have roughly about 51.92% of the population still living in rural areas. And so those are two extremely important data points. Now, if you look at the study undertaken by the DOE, which they released about 4 or 5 months ago on the benefits of electrification, and I've said this in previous interviews, providing electricity to a poor family, for example, for 0 to 8 hours, raises their propensity to expend and to generate income by about 15%. If you raise it from 8 to 16 hours, it rises by about a third, and if you raise it from 16 to 24 hours, that rises by about 50%. So it tells you that power precedes progress. So we believe that if we help in rolling out transmission grids and transmission lines, both when it comes to the grid itself and also to SPUG areas. SPUGs are those cooperatives which are not currently attached to the grid. You call that the small power utility groups, and they take on roughly about 178 billion in annual subsidies, 70% only of which goes to only 2 SPUGs. We felt that if you roll out electricity in these areas, then you will in fact spur capital formation in these areas today. The most expensive electricity is not having electricity. And today, many of these SPUG areas are currently paying the true cost of electricity. They're about 70 to 80% of their power is currently coming from oil and bunker. So they're paying about 25 pesos per kilowatt hour, whilst we're paying about 11.40, 11.50 in Meralco. So hence, we believe that the only way by which we can reduce that electricity cost over time is by giving GenCos, particularly renewable GenCo operators, be able to generate enough or create enough facilities that would get on the grid, or at least be able to get on a transmission grid that can provide electricity to both SPUGs and also to the national grid. So hence, we believe that by investing significantly in energy security, it would spur growth. The other area would be broadband. It's quite interesting. In April of 2024, the World Bank, wrote quite an interesting blog, and you may research that on the internet, where they wrote about the disparity between the rich and the poor, and you will find that greatest disparity existing in broadband connectivity. And we felt, again, that by supporting broadband connectivity, you are in fact helping 4 sectors. Agricultural sector primarily. Those companies today who want to make use of IoT will not be able to, because they don't have access to broadband. Those who want to build data centers, for example, in non-urban areas won't be able to simply because they don't have electricity, nor can they send data because there's no broadband. So hence, we felt that building energy security or energy infrastructure and building telecoms infrastructure would in fact enable capital formation wholesale and not just building a single company platform that would invest in these. Third is mining. Mining is extremely important to the economy. Well, not yet, but if you look at, statements have been made that we are the fifth mineralized country in the world, and yet the uh, contribution of mining to GDP is only 0.5%. And meanwhile, there are about 27 dormant mining companies that have gone bankrupt when the price of copper worth about 63 cents in the early 80s and mid 80s. Now it's at $4.20. So it's high time for these mining assets to be recapitalized. I believe that the contribution to GDP could be significantly higher, and its social impact and impact to poverty will be very significant.
Okay.
We think that it'll reduce poverty in certain areas,
All
to be
right.
more specific.
Yeah, you said it, Joel. A power and connectivity, that's the food of economic growth. So
Yeah.
we're so happy you're making these investments. One more question before I let you go. Maybe tight answer because we're running out of time. The Maharlika Fund was established to bring in foreign investments. What steps are being taken to lure global investors?
Two things. Number one, governance, and that was really what we spent what we spent on the last year, making sure that our organization is ready to be able to take on foreign investors. Second is to ensure transparency. So we've built our website. We're going to be undertaking all our disclosures in these areas. Third, making sure that we've got the right people, the right talent, in fact, managing the investment group. And fourth is building our credibility. So hence, with these announcements that we're undertaking, I think we are in fact validating our mandate, and we believe that over the next 6 months, we should be able to announce already our initial partnerships.
Okay, thank you very much, Joel, for your time this morning. We have high hopes for you and the Maharlika Fund. So yeah, all the best to you.
Thank you.